I'm Dan Doughty, content editor of the O-Scale Resource Magazine, welcoming you to the Canadian National Sanmore Subdivision.
Greetings everyone from the great Quebec North Shore, where the weather is almost as cool as the people that live here. Well, maybe not. But what is cool is that I finally have not one but two new episodes for you guys that I'm releasing back to back. So what do you say we leave this old clunker behind and we head back to the basement? Come on, let's go. So, this is episode number 7 of the construction of the O-Scale Tool Rail CN Sanmore Subdivision. This episode is way overdue. I know a lot of you have been asking me when I would have another episode coming out. It's been well over a year since I've done anything as in terms of videos. I apologize for that. And to make it up to you, well, I have 2 episodes this time, so I'm hoping you'll forgive me. Like I said, this episode will be just an update on what I've been up to for the past year. There's been a few changes here on the layout, a little bit of progress, a few new tools. So I'll just switch the camera over. I'll grab the camera and I'll start the tour. Okay, so here we go, folks. First of all, there's been so much new stuff that I don't even know where to begin. I think I'll start at the center of the layout here, and what I'll try to do this time is I'll try not to cover the microphone on my camera so that I don't do like I did in episode 6 and you guys couldn't hear what I was saying. Now at one of my last update videos, I was working on the fascia. So now the fascia is completed. As you can see here, this is the Douglas Cove area where there will be a railcar ferry eventually, and a large salt dome for road salt. And by finishing the fascia, that also allowed me to install the rest of my signal bungalows and finish all the wiring of the signals. So now all the signals are wired, and since I was in that phase of wiring, I decided to finish everything that was electronic on the layout. Well, at least all the things that I could finish at this phase. This is one of them here. This is a slide detector. I have also installed a defect detector, which is these 2 little thingies here. The card for the defect detector is right here. This will all be hidden under the scenery. I'll try to do a good job of hiding the 2 little units here so that it doesn't show. But this is kind of fun. It's a defect detector. When the train goes over, it scans the wheels of the train. It doesn't actually detect real defects, but it simulates an actual defect detector. It gives you the train speed, gives you the number of axles, and once every blue moon it'll give you a defect, so you have to stop the train and inspect your train and maybe set off a car. So that makes it interesting for operations. So that's another thing that I did. I also wired in all my remote turnouts. Most of them are in yards. I'll try to zoom in here. So wherever there's a remote switch in a yard, these on the prototype, these turnouts are operated by radio, by the yard switchman. But on my layout, I have this little control here, which is wired to a tortoise machine. So I just select the position of the switch, and target changes color. I'll reverse it here. It's now in reverse. I'll normalize it so you can see it in action. There you go. Those are double-sided, so you can see the targets, the lighted targets in both directions. This is based on the prototype that we have at QNSNL. And remote switches are mostly, like in this case, this switch is radio controlled because it's the switch that gives access to the car shop. So this one is radio controlled, and I have a few other turnouts here and there on the layout, like the spurs that are coming off the main line are also on this type of control, except that these controls are locked on the main line. So that's one other thing I've been working on, and I'll just jump from one thing to the other here since I'm in this area. I've been working on some new cars. These are old Lionel cars that I've modified. Oops, my watch just shorted the tracks here. All right, so these are old Lionel cars that I've modified. I took some cheap Lionel cars. I believe that was a tooling from the 80s. I got those cars for close to nothing on eBay, but they were really, really ugly cars. So I had to really work on the cars. What I did is I removed all the ladders and I replaced them with brass wires. I removed the platforms and the walkways, and I made those out of laser board, which is basically just a cardboard. So I made these out of laser board. I also design and 3D printed the hatches, because those bottom hatches on the Lionel car were really small hatches. They were looking kind of funny. And if you look at the prototype of these cars, they had these big hoppers here, big hopper hatches. So I redesigned and 3D printed the hatches. I also had to 3D print the truck bolsters, because the way the trucks were hung on the cars was sort of weird. So if I wanted to fit two-rail trucks on there, I had to redesign the entire underside of the car so that I could fit the proper bolster at the proper height for two-rail cars, and for two-rail wheel sets. And I also added some KD 805 couplers. I then painted these cars. I designed the all the graphics on CorelDRAW, which I printed on my Alps printer, and then I weathered the cars. So for now I have 6 cars. I'm planning to have 12 cars in total, all different numbers. So yeah, that was one of the projects that I did. And another project, which is right behind me here, is this bridge right here. This is what I call the Kermit Bridge. Happily named Kermit Bridge. And this bridge, it's not based on any prototype whatsoever. That's kind of the way I model. I just looked at photos on the internet and designed something that would look halfway decent, and I built this bridge. It's entirely made out of laser board. So the entire bridge is cardstock basically, but it's cardstock that's been cut on the laser engraver. All the parts were cut on the laser engraver. Even the rivets were lasered in cardboard also. The plates also, everything except the deck. The deck is homemade ties out of wood, but the entire bridge, the plates here, this is all cardboard. Towers, everything. And for the deck, I lasered some wood so that I would have the bolt castings lasered. Actually, what I did is I made a design and I engraved the surface of the wood and left the bolts as standing, as non-existing. So the engraver removed all the wood except where there's a bolt casting. So this is all wood. It's all wood. But you know, once painted, it looks okay. I mean, if you look at this from a distance, when you're operating, I mean, this is what you see here. So, well, looks all right. The entire railing, all the walkway, that's all recycled cereal boxes. I keep my boxes of cornflakes. And I've used them in the laser engraver also. So really cheap walkway. Same thing for my tie plates. It's all cornflake boxes, or maybe corn pops, or frosted flakes. Depends on what I feel like eating that week. The bridge pillars, the abutments, are made out of scraps of wood that I just applied some plaster to the wood, and then I sanded everything down and painted and weathered the whole thing. Even made some rebars sticking out there. Again, just some cheap wire just stuck in there with glue, and you know, you get the effect when you look at it from a distance. And what's left to do in this area will be all the backdrops, the mountains on each side, and then all the frog ponds that'll be underneath, because this is not going to be a river, this is going to be a bog, because I want to put some wildlife in there. So I figured the frog pond would be nice, a good place where you can see bears and moose and ducks and frogs. So yeah, so that was another project that I did. More fascia here. Like I said, the entire fascia is now completed. And here we're getting to the lining for my tunnel, which is something I just, one afternoon I decided to grab some foil paper, and I made a mold out of just some leftover styrofoam, and I made this tunnel lining. It's not painted yet. It's just a startup here. Eventually this will all get painted, and it'll blend in with the rest of the mountain that'll be here. Now, speaking of fascia, here in Taganege, what I did is I sort of made an extension to the layout here, because I was noticing that my layout, it was just tracks and tracks and tracks all the way from one edge to the other edge, and I didn't have any place for scenery. So I wanted to have at least one place where I'd have a little bit of a street. So I'll have a little bit of a street here, a gatehouse, and that leads into access to the mill. Now, speaking of the mill, I've started working on some of the parts for the mill. This is my wood chip loadout. Again, it's all scratch built, mostly made out of laser board, cardstock again. Even the railings. The only things that I purchased on there were the ladders, the safety ladders, and the H-beams for the base of it. The rest is all scratch built using laser board. I designed it and 3D printed these blowers on top there for the conveyor. The conveyor itself is just brass pipe that I had here at home, that I installed there, that I painted. Now there's one conveyor that's missing that'll be coming from the jet mill all the way to the center part here. That'll be added later on once I start building the mill. Now the fun thing part is this wood chip loader is actually operational. It's not wired in yet. I can't really do a full demonstration, but when I built this thing, I built it with little traps at the bottom. and I added some servo motors so I can control the opening of the traps, opening and closing of the traps. And I can fill the hoppers from the top here with a funnel. And there's enough material in one hopper to fill 3 MTH hopper cars. So with these 3 hoppers, I have enough for all 9 cars on my CP wood chip train. So yeah, that's another project that I've worked on. It took me quite a few months to build that thing and the bridge. That was my entire winter. Started probably in, I'd say in late November, and I worked till maybe a month ago, maybe till the end of May on these 2 projects. And then I also purchased, I was talking about 3D printing, I purchased an Elegoo Mars 3D printer. So I've been learning how to work with that thing. I've never done any 3D design, so that was a whole new learning curve for me. I had never used a 3D printer before, so that was a learning curve, but it's not really that hard to learn. There's plenty of support on the internet, so that made it quite easy. And I've printed, I have a few characters here that I can show you. Those are all 3D printed characters. Now I can't take any credit for the designs. I got those designs off Thingiverse, which is a website that is for designers of 3D parts. But this is what it looks like. I have a bunch of stuff that's not even painted yet, but this is all stuff that I 3D printed with my printer. It's amazing what this thing can do. If you look at the size of these details, now these are incredibly small here. So yeah, it's really amazing what you can do with those. I also printed some parts from my scrapyard. So yeah, the 3D printer is quite the tool. I can't see my workshop without a 3D printer anymore. It's fastly becoming one of my go-to tool for model railroading. Now another thing I've been working on my backdrops, which is actually the subject of my next episode, which will be published maybe just a few days after this one. Oh, there goes the dog. Now, if you look at my backdrops, those are just photos that I took and that I printed on paper, and that's the result. So yeah, like I said, I'll have more in that video, but I just wanted to show you what I've been doing here. Now you see that there are some spaces between, like I have a part of a building here. That's because there will be actual buildings between these prints here, and the same goes over there where there's a spot there where there's nothing. There will be a building there, so no need to have backdrops back there if I'm going to cover it. Now the backdrops, if you look at this, if you overlay many photos one on top of the other, this is like 3 or 4 photos, you can really get something nice, really get a lot of depth. And again, I mean, this is just, you know, this is just part of the scene. So once the scene is completed, you know, this will not be as noticeable as it is right now. And that's it's the only thing we see right now because it's the only thing that's done. But once the whole scene, the entire scene is done, the backdrops will just be part of it. And I think it'll complement the scene pretty nicely. So yeah, that's all the backdrop. Again, all the way up to the mountain. I painted clouds on there. And I've just made a few little setups here just to see where I was going, if everything was looking good. And I think this will look good. Let me just back up here so you can see the entire thing. Okay, now purchase-wise for the past year, I've acquired this absolutely beautiful CN Point St. Charles caboose. It's entirely made out of brass. I believe it was scratch built by a gentleman by the name of Dave Nadeau out of in province of Ontario, Canada. And if I'm correct, I think he only made like 25 copies of this caboose, which have, of course, sold out many years ago. The gentleman passed away some time ago. I was very fortunate to have a friend who had 2 of those. So thank you, Mr. Miner. really appreciate this. Mr. Paul Miner, who sold me one of his brass cabooses. So that's one of the very important purchases I've made. I've also purchased a couple of locomotives. Not a whole lot of cars. I mostly the cars that you saw for my Lionel conversion cars. I did purchase a few nicely weathered cars. Again, from a friend of mine, Mr. Joseph Voltas, who does some incredible weathering work. And he's done a few custom cars for me here. This is one of them. This here is another one of them. And truly an artist and a real gentleman. So again, just a few purchases lately. I'm not buying a whole lot of cars anymore. I don't think I'll be purchasing a lot of cars. No more locomotives. I have about 25 locomotives. That's probably all I'm going to have on this layout. So there you go, purchase wise, and you can see my yard here. Okay, so that about completes this video. I told you this would be a short episode. I don't want to get you bored, so I'm keeping it short now. The only thing that I've been up to that's not something that I can relate on video is I've been doing some remote operations on Pete Mulvaney's layout, which is a beautiful O-scale layout that's about maybe 800 miles away. And I've been able to operate from my basement as the locomotive engineer on Pete's layout. Pete is the conductor and I'm the engineer, and he tells me where to go, and I just go wherever he tells me to go. So this has been a lot of fun. It's if you look at the technology today, it's incredible the things that you can do. Never in my lifetime would I have even dreamed that I could have operators on my layout or to operate on somebody else's layout that's 1,000 miles away. But today this is all possible. So besides that, I mean, it's you've seen it all. It doesn't look like much, but it's most of the projects like the bridge and the loadout has been quite time consuming. The rest of the little tidbits that I've done were just in between projects. I don't know what's up next. I don't have a plan. I just go wherever I feel, whatever I feel like doing. And so we'll see, maybe in, I don't want to give you a timeline, but maybe in a year until my next episode. Hopefully it'll be before that, if I have enough stuff to show you. So until then, I'll see you trackside. Hi, remember me? I almost forgot. Well, actually, I did forget. So this is why I had to reset everything up. I don't know if you noticed at the beginning of my my episode, I'm not the one doing the introduction anymore. This is something new that I want to try. I want to have you guys participate. So anyone who wants to do the introduction for my future episodes, all you have to do is record yourself saying the wording from the welcome message, if you wish, at the beginning of each episode. You can watch my other episodes. I've always done it the same way. It's always the same wording. Just record yourself in your work area, because I want you to be in. I want to feature all the listeners in their workspace. So take a video of you in your workspace, in your work clothes, and record the message and send it to me with your full name and your job title, so that I can add it to the video. And I will have you guys on there. Hopefully a lot of you will participate. This should be fun. If you like the videos and you want to participate, everyone is welcome. You can send me a video of you in your workspace or in your leisure space saying the words "Hello" and "Welcome" to the Old-Scale Canadian National Railway's Sanmore Subdivision. You can email me that to the address below on my Gmail account, and I will make sure to have you featured as the opening act on one of my future episodes.